We left off, we talked about the whole pureblood, mudblood stuff, I believe, on 116, 117, 116. So, Harry leaves his detention with Lockhart on 120, or actually, before he leaves, he hears the voice. Here's a voice, page 120. Come to me, let me rip you, let me tear you, let me kill you. And he says, what? And Lockhart, I know. And Lockhart goes on about bestseller lists and stuff. Harry, the voice. Lockhart realizes or thinks Harry has been overtaxed. And so he lets Harry leave. Chapter 8. We get the death day party, okay, where we are told it's nearly Headless Nick's 500th death day party. When did he die?
1492.
When specifically?
October 31st.
10/31, 1492. So it's 500 years later. So now it's 10/31, 1992. That gives us the timeline for when the stories, so to speak, occur. This is the second year. So the first year is 1991. Harry turns 11 then. So Harry was born 1980, right? That's not important. This is what's important. So this is 1992. We're going to find out the Chamber of Secrets was last opened when?
50 years ago.
50 years previously. So 1942. We're going to find out Hagrid was what year in 1942?
Third year.
Hagrid was a third year, so 11, 12. Hagrid was 13. Tom Riddle was fifth year, right? So 14, 15 years old, okay? So if he was 15 years old in 1942, he's now 65. Hagrid is now 62, all right? May or may not be important later, just, have some of these little details down. So why does Nick want Harry to, should I even go there? Is it important? Want Harry to come to his death day party.
Oh, because he wants him to pretty much vouch that he's like intimidating so that he can be a part of the head hunt.
He wants to be part of the headless hunt. What's his problem? He's nearly headless. He's got like a little half-inch flap of skin keeping the head on. And you can't cut it off now, okay? So he can't go along with them. Ron and Hermione come with them. Let's see here. They see Moaning Myrtle. They leave. Harry hears the voice again, 137. Rip, tear, kill. So hungry, so long, time to kill, okay? Harry follows the voice with Ron, Hermione in tow. And they go up to, all this other stuff from other books. They go up to the third floor hallway, which is kind of odd because it keeps being mentioned this way. This is a freaking castle. It's got more than one third floor. Or more than one third floor hallway. But they go to the third floor hallway and they see this thing. Bottom of 138. Something was shining on the wall ahead. They approached slowly, squinting through the darkness. Foot-high words had been daubed on the wall between two windows, shimmering in the light cast by the flaming torches. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Ron, what's that underneath? Notice, if this is the hallway, going like this, where the words have been written, they're not standing like I am right in front of it. They're still probably back here where they can see it, but what's beneath is not being illuminated by the torches that well. As they get nearer, what do they see? There's water on the floor. Okay. And Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, stiff as a board, hanging by her tail from the torch bracket. Ron, let's get out of here. Harry, shouldn't we try to help? Remember that one day I started writing down Neville, Hermione, Draco, Mrs. Norris? We could start, just put a list of all the things / people Harry helps throughout the books. When we get to book 7, towards the very end, we have to put the world, everybody, so to speak, okay? Ron, trust me, we don't want to be found here. But they are. Then comes Malfoy blathering about the enemies of the air and all that kind of stuff. Okay? So, Dumbledore's there, Snape's there, McGonagall's there, Lockhart's there. Lockhart thinks the cat's been killed, etc., etc. Dumbledore says, not dead, just petrified. Okay? Filch wants justice. What does Snape want? What does justice mean for Snape?
Harry getting expelled.
Why?
Because he thinks, because he wants an out as seeker.
You get him off the Quidditch team because they beat us last year. He doesn't want Harry to win again, etc. And Dumbledore says, page 144, innocent until proven guilty, Severus. We're, this remaining novel, any of the other novels, for those of you who have read them, let me see a show of hands again. Put them way up. How many of you have read all 7 of these? Way up. So, okay, not half of you. Okay. So I've got to be careful what I say. Do we see anywhere else this judicial notion of innocent until proven guilty? No. That is an our world notion. Okay? That Dumbledore says, and yet we're going to see when we get to Prisoner of Azkaban, we're going to see somebody sent off to prison without a trial, without any kind of hearing. He doesn't even go before a judge for anything. Just ship him off. So, Dumbledore says, could just, or Snape, says, could just be in the wrong place on the wrong time, but he never thinks that way about Harry. You're going to skip a bunch because I want to get through this and try to get into Prisoner of Azkaban today. Page 149 and following. We get introduced for the first time to Professor Binns, who teaches history and magic. What is the peculiarity about Professor Binns?
He's a ghost.
He's a ghost. He's dead. Went to sleep one day in the staff room, woke up the next day dead. Okay? How you wake up being dead, I don't really understand that yet, but okay. And he teaches the history of magic. Maybe you've had a professor like Binns. Hopefully I'm not. I try to keep people awake. What is Binns like as a teacher?
Straight to the point.
Okay, straight to the point. History is what? Boring. It's dead, right? Kind of like he is. It's all in the past. Seemingly has no relevance for today. Unless you realize you don't learn from history, you're going to do the same damn stupid things people did in the past, kind of a thing. Okay? What else about him? How does he teach? Does his voice go up and down? Does he go louder and soft? None of that. It's just common. It's a straight drone. All right? And what do students never do in his classes?
Pay attention.
Pay attention. How does a professor know students are paying attention?
They ask questions.
Bingo. They ask questions. Hermione asks a question. And he like startles him back into life almost. Page 149. Could you tell us anything about the Chamber of Secrets? My subject is history of magic. I deal with facts, Miss Granger, not myths and legends. In having Professor Benz say that, and I have no idea if J.K. Rowling intends this or not, but she brings up a big issue in what is called historiography, which is kind of the science of writing history. What is the big question? What are the facts of history? I mean, history 100 years ago was done one way. Today it's not done the same way. 100 years ago, it was all about the important dates and the important people. The kings, the queens, the commanders, the generals, the battles, that kind of stuff. Over the last 100 years, there's been a huge shift. So now there's this whole thing, about the history of private life. That is, everyday, ordinary people living their lives in their homes, places of business, all that kind of stuff. What does that tell us about, history and such? So, he goes on and talks about, starts to get back into his lecture, and Hermione asks him another question. Don't legends have a basis in fact? Well, we've read The Lord of the Rings. We know they do, right? Because Aragorn says, you can walk both in legend and alive today, etc. He said, well, I suppose. But for him, the story of the Chamber of Secrets is sensational, even ludicrous. What two words from the opening paragraph of the first book could we use to describe the Chamber of Secrets? Mysterious and strange, which we know the Dursleys don't hold anything to. Neither apparently does Professor Benz. So, he gives, for the first time we hear it, right, on page 150, a brief history of Hogwarts. About 1,000 years ago, Hogwarts was founded, he says, by the four founders. The schools, the houses are named after them. Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, Salazar Slytherin. They built the castle to keep everything away from the prying eyes of muggles and such. And he says for a few years they worked together in harmony. So the school's been around for over 1,000 years, and he says for a few years they worked together in harmony. Define a few. Give me your range. Let's start this way. One is one. A couple is usually a couple, two. A few, three to, what's a several? Is several more than a few? Yes, it is. So a few is between a couple and several. 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100, 200, 300? No. Because you're doing decades there, right? So 3 to
5 years.
5, 3 to 7, out of 1,000. There was harmony for a minuscule amount. This is going to be brought up again in book 5, in the Sorting Hat Song. So, a rift began to grow between Slytherin and the others. Slytherin wished to be more selective. Selective how?
Only allowing pure bloods into Hogwarts.
By blood. So that idea is going to be beat into you in this novel. This idea of genealogy, of heredity, of one's ancestry, whether or not you are pure blood or mixed blood of some kind, half-blood, mudblood, etc. Okay? So, he says, after a while, a serious argument on the subject between what kind of students we take in occurred between Slytherin and Gryffindor, and Slytherin left the school. That implies Gryffindor said what? You don't all have to be pureblood. We can bring in half-bloods, all right? It's kind of interesting, because it's kind of not what is implied in the Sorting Hat song in book 5. It's somebody else who does that. So he says that's what reliable historical sources tell us. But the legend says Slytherin sealed, first built, then sealed, Chamber of Secrets so that nobody could open it until his own true heir arrived at the school. The heir would be able to unseal it, unleash whatever is inside, etc., etc. He says it's all nonsense. Hermione, what do you mean by horror within? What is this horror that's within the Chamber of Secrets? He says nobody knows. And nobody's found it. 152. Parvati Patil. You'd have to use dark magic to open it up. Just because a wizard doesn't use dark magic doesn't mean he can't. Miss Pennyfeather, notice he doesn't know the students' names at all. Too much like him there. Where have we heard a phrase like that before? Just because a wizard doesn't use dark magic doesn't mean he can. Book 1, Dumbledore and McGonagall are talking on Privet Drive, and Dumbledore says, Lord Voldemort has powers I'll never have, and she says, oh, you're just too noble to use them. In other words, you could, but you won't. And then he says, if the likes of Dumbledore, Dean Thomas, well, maybe you have to be related to Slytherin. Enemies of the heir beware, It's a myth. It does not exist. There is not a shred of evidence Slytherin ever built so much as a secret broom cupboard. And yet there is a secret broom cupboard, isn't there? Yes, there is. It's called the Room of Requirement. It will show up later, book 5. Okay? So, that class ends. We get introduced, page 153, to Colin Creevey. Or I kind of like to think of him, Colin Creepy. She just kill him off in this book. Why wait till book 7? Just do him now, Stupid little git. Anyways, 157-58. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are back up on that 3rd floor, and Percy sees them coming out of the 3rd floor girls' bathroom, where they'd seen the puddle coming from. Okay? Ron says, we're just having a look around, but you're in the girls' bathroom. Okay? Ron says, top of 158, you're just worried I'm going to mess up your chances of being head boy. And what does Percy do?
5 points from Gryffindor.
He takes 5 points from Gryffindor. His own house, by the way. Okay? Is there a problem there? How can Percy do that?
Because he's a prefect.
He's a prefect. And yet in book 5, we will find out, we're told prefects can't take away points. And yet he's a prefect here, and he takes away points. We find out in book 5, someone who is a prefect there does take points, but it's not because he's a prefect. It's because he's in cahoots with somebody else in that book, the new Hogwarts headmaster, headmistress. Don't want to give too much away. Okay? Just a little detail, because she, brings us up in book 5, seemingly not remembering that that she had this happen here. So Hermione comes up with the idea of Polyjuice Potion, because Harry, Ron, and Hermione assume if there's an heir of Slytherin at Hogwarts, who would it be? Naturally, Malfoy. Okay, why Malfoy?
Well, he's been going around calling Mudbloods and just been all out horrible, and he's generally horrible, and he comes from a very powerful Slytherin family.
Okay, all true. Why else? Think of what Quirrell says about Snape at the end of book 1. Because he does seem the part. How does Malfoy come across?
He seems the part.
He's just evil, right? little tidbit, nugget. Malfoy isn't evil. He's a bully. He's rotten. He's not nice. He's not evil. And one of the things that Rowling is going to show us is that just because you don't like someone and just because someone is rotten and mean and not nice and a bully doesn't mean they're evil. You find out whether or not someone is evil when push finally comes to shove and that person has to act on that. And we're going to see Malfoy won't act on it when it becomes necessary. Okay? I won't say anything else. So, skip a bunch again. We get to chapter The Rogue Bludger. Harry gets his arm broken, and Lockhart tries to fix it. He does, kind of, one way you could look at it. Bottom of 173 and on 174. How does Lockhart fix Harry's arm?
Takes away the bone.
Takes away the bone. So his arm's no longer broken. It's just, his arm's just hanging there. And even, when my arm hangs like this, there is definition because of the bones. Harry's is just like an empty sock. Just let that image sit there for a while. So, Madame Pomfrey says, you're in for a rough, few days. Page 176, 77. Dobby shows up on Harry's chest. He wakes up and Dobby's sitting on his chest. Harry, it was you. Dobby was the one who stopped Harry and Ron from getting through the barrier at platform 9 3/4. Dobby says, yes. I was shocked to find you back here. Harry, you got us nearly expelled. And then Dobby blows his nose on a corner of the filthy pillowcase that he's wearing. Middle 177. Why do you wear that thing? 'Tis a mark of the house elf's enslavement, sir. Dobby can only be freed if his masters present him with clothes. The family's careful not to pass Dobby even a sock, sir, foreshadowing, for then he would be free to leave their house forever. He tells Harry, you gotta go home. Dobby mentions it was his bludger. Harry said, you tried to kill me, or you almost killed me. Page 177. I only wanted you to be hurt enough to be sent home. Is that all? If Harry Potter only knew, if he knew what he means to us, and then he defines the us. Top of 178. To the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Now, initially, who does it sound like the us refers to? Only. Let me put that in. House elves. Okay. Does it? No, it doesn't. Who does the lowly, the enslaved, the dregs of the magical world include?
All magical creatures? In a way.
You gotta be a little bit more specific. Because who is included in the term creatures? Creature's just a living thing. So people. Is it all magical living things? No, it's not. It's all non-human magical things. So that includes house elves. It includes goblins, like Griphook, and others. Who's one of their teachers? Or let me rephrase that. What does Flitwick look like?
A goblin?
He looks like a goblin. I don't think we're actually ever told that he is one, but it probably is. What else? Who lives in the Forbidden Forest?
The centaurs?
Centaurs. Okay. What else? Giants? Dragons? Nifflers? Probably everything else that's non-human. All right? Because we're going to have a scene in book 5. Harry and Dumbledore are going to go into the Ministry of Magic. And there's going to be this beautiful statue of a wizard holding his wand up. And a witch who's a little bit shorter, looking adoringly up at him. And he's going to be surrounded, they're going to be surrounded by a goblin, a house elf, and a centaur, who are going to look worshipingly up at this witch and wizard. And Dumbledore is going to tell us at one point, that's a lie. That's a total lie. Okay? And he's going to explain why later. So, Dobby goes on. Dobby remembers how it was when he who must not be named was at the height of his powers. We house elves were treated like vermin, and I still am, but anyways. Mostly, sir, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. When? When did life improve over he who must not be named? Or when did life improve, stop it, for house elves? Back when Harry was a baby. He's not talking about what happened at the end of the previous year. No. He says, and the Dark Lord's power was broken, and it was a new dawn, sir. So if it was a new dawn, then what was it like before the Dark Lord's power was broken? Nighttime. It was dark. If Harry's defeating of Voldemort creates like a new rising of the sun, then Voldemort's time in power was kind of like Sauron's spreading darkness over Middle-earth. And Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end. So what has Harry just been equated with? A light shining in darkness. Okay, remember, J.K. Rowling said in that interview, yes, I am a Christian, and I can't tell you what that means because that will give away the ending. This is almost like, I'm not saying it is, it's allusive, A-L-L-U-S-I-V-E, to the prologue of St. John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God, the same was in the beginning with God, and the Word was what? Or came like what? A light in darkness. Okay? Dobby's using that kind of language for Harry. It's not an accident that later on Harry's going to be referred to as Patronus Potter. So, he says, terrible things are now happening. The Chamber of Secrets is open again. And Harry's like, so there is a Chamber of Secrets, 1. And 2, it was open before. And 3, it's opened again. So he's just gotten what? 3 facts. Not suppositions, facts proved. Harry, I'm not in danger. I'm not a Muggleborn. Right? Both of Harry's parents are magical. His mother is a witch. His father was a wizard. His mother's parents were Muggles. Okay, but Harry's parents are not Muggles. The reason I'm emphasizing that is because Tom Riddle is going to tell Harry something later on in the novel, which to me, there's problems with what he says. And it's about Harry's, I almost said heredity, Harry's genealogy or heredity. Anyway, his genetics. So, Harry goes on, because Harry asks, he wants to know who is it. Harry, top of 179. One of my best friends is Muggleborn. She'll be first in line if the chamber really has been opened. Foreshadowing, because Hermione will be petrified. Harry Potter risks his own life for his friends. So noble, so valiant, but he must save himself. He must. Harry Potter must not. Must not what? Die? Harry Potter risks his own life for his friends. He must not, and he doesn't get to finish because there's a disturbance down at the other end of the infirmary. Okay? Risks his own life for his friends. Greater love hath no one than this, than that he is willing to lay down his life for his friends, Christ says. So Dobby disappears. Dumbledore comes backing into the dormitory, carrying one end of what looks like a statue. And then comes McGonagall carrying the other end. Dumbledore tells McGonagall to get Madame Pomfrey. She comes in. Dumbledore says, another attack. So Harry's hearing all this. Harry kind of looks up and he's calling Creevy. Petrified? Yes. They open the camera, because Colin Creevy goes everywhere with that camera, right? They open the camera, psst, hissing and smoke comes out. 180. McGonagall. What does this mean? It means that the Chamber of Secrets is indeed open again. So now Harry has had second confirmation. That one, there is a Chamber of Secrets. Two, it's been opened in the past. How do you know? Because he says it's been opened again. He wouldn't say again if it hadn't been opened previously. So just gets confirmation of all three things that Dobby earlier said. But Albus, surely who? McGonagall asks. And Dumbledore says, this is foreshadowing, I think. The question is not who, but how? How is that foreshadowing? Same letters, rearranged. Kind of jump towards the end here. Harry's going to meet Tom Riddle in the Chamber of Secrets, and Tom Riddle has Harry's wand, and he writes, I am Lord, he writes, Tom Marvolo Riddle, in the air. And then he takes the wand, and he does this, and the letters rearrange, and they become, I am Lord Voldemort. Not who, but how. All right? Here's another scene later on. Book 5. Where they're discussing a veil. And in the very next sentence, the word evil is used. Rearrange the letters and you have the same word. Because the veil, to some, indicates evil, but to others, not so much. Okay? So, the dueling club. What happens in the dueling club? I'm just trying to get through it quickly. So, who comes up with the idea of the dueling club? Lockhart. Do you really want to do anything Lockhart suggests? Not really. So, Lockhart's going to teach them dueling, and who else assists? Notice, assists Lockhart. Snape. Harry, Draco. What does Snape whisper into Draco's ear? What did he tell him to do? Serpent Sortia. He calls up the serpent. Okay? What does Lockhart whisper into Harry's ear? How does Lockhart teach Harry how to duel? How does Lockhart teach them anything? Not a trick question. He doesn't, right? He doesn't teach them squat. Okay? He just says, well, give your wrist a little flick to it. He doesn't tell Harry what to even say. Okay? What does Harry do? How does Harry get the snake to leave Justin Finch Fletchley, hate that name, alone? Does he use his wand? Nope. What's he do? He talks to it. Go away, big snake. It's not what he literally says.
There's a name for it. I'm blanking on it.
He's a Parselmouth, we find out. Page 195. Ron's like, get out of here. Harry, you're a Parselmouth. Why didn't you tell us? I'm a what? A Parselmouth. You can talk to snakes. Oh, no. It's only the second time I've done it, but, I said a book. And they're like, what? Bit loads of people. No. What's bad? What's wrong with everyone? If I hadn't told that snake not to attack Justin, oh, that's what you said to it. What do you mean? You were there. You heard me. I heard you speaking Parseltongue. So how do you speak Parseltongue? What does Parseltongue sound like?
Snake.
In the film, if I remember right, it's just. Do snakes really hiss? They can. Cobras can. Usually you don't want them to because that's just before they spit their venom at you, which can blind you. Okay. Rattlesnakes, some rattlesnakes will. Okay. They're not trying to say, go away. That's them indicating fear, and if you back up, they'll go off on their own. I heard you speaking Parseltongue. You could have been saying anything. No wonder Justin panicked. You sounded like you were egging the snake on. It was creepy. But I speak a different language. Okay? So, Harry says, but I'm not Slytherin's great grandson. Hermione, you'll find that hard to prove. He lived about 1,000 years ago. For all we know, you could be. Okay? At the end of this novel, we're going to be told something about Harry. And you can interpret what we're told, I think, one of two ways. You can interpret it figuratively, the way I think Rowling wants us initially to, or you can interpret it literally. Usually you would say literal is the surface interpretation. In this instance, I think literal is the deeper interpretation. Okay? So, Harry couldn't get to sleep that night, page 197. He's thinking, am I a descendant of Salazar Slytherin? But I'm in Gryffindor. Sorting Hat wouldn't have put me in Gryffindor. It would have put me in Slytherin. It wanted to put me in Slytherin. So beginning little over middle of the book, Harry starts to wonder. And I think the question plagues him until we get to the end. Do I belong in Slytherin? Am I really the heir of Slytherin and such? Okay. Ernie Macmillan, Harry runs into in the library, and Ernie makes some comments about, I hear you hate those muggles you live with, and Harry's like, you come live with the Dursleys. Tell me how you like it. Okay? So, what's that imply? Ernie getting at odds with Harry. It's going to be important later on. He walks off thinking what Ernie had said. Justin Fletchley, said he wondered if Potter was going to come after him, because what did we find out about Justin early in the novel? Muggle-born, what else? He'd been down for Eton. He wasn't even supposed to go to Hogwarts. Okay? Harry goes upstairs. 202. And he sees Justin Finch Fletchley lying on the floor, a rigid, cold look of shock frozen on his face, and nearly headless neck just kind of barely floating off the ground. He couldn't just leave them there. He had to get help. Okay, it's bad enough finding Mrs. Norris. Luckily, he didn't find Colin. Okay? But now he finds nearly headless Nick in Justin. So a ghost can be petrified, a ghost which doesn't have a body, per se, in Justin. And he was just thinking about Ernie's comment about Justin fearing an attack by Harry. And there's Peeves, the poltergeist, starts blabbing everything off. All right? Polyjuice potion. Chapter. So, McGonagall takes Harry to Dumbledore's office. 206, 207. Harry goes in. He sees the Sorting Hat. What does he do? And why? Okay, he puts it on. Why?
Reassurance.
He wants proof that he's in the right house. He wants the hat to say it again. And the hat says, I stand by what I said. You would have done well in Slytherin. No, it's not what I want to hear. You're wrong. And then he sees Dumbledore's bird. Poof! Big old flame. Great. I belong in Slytherin, and I killed Dumbledore's bird. Dumbledore comes in, 207. You're buried. Calm down. Fawkes is a phoenix, and he explains about phoenixes. Phoenixes burst into flame when it is time for them to die and are reborn from the ashes. Watch. So, it should always qualify a little bit. In almost every conversation Dumbledore has with Harry, what does he do? He teaches. Every instance, nearly, is a teaching moment for Dumbledore. So listen to what he teaches. Fascinating creatures, phoenixes. They can carry immensely heavy loads. So just chuck that away in your memory there, Harry. They're tears of healing powers. Don't forget that. And they're highly faithful pets. Okay? So why did Dumbledore send for Harry? To teach him about Fawkes? I don't think that's literally the reason. I think that may be partially a reason that he wanted Harry to see Fawkes. What's the real reason? He has one question. Page 209. I must ask you, Harry, whether there's anything you'd like to tell me. Anything at all. What kind of question is that?
You know about what's happening?
Okay, possibly. What else? Is he asking for a specific? Does he say, Harry, I want you to tell me about? No, he doesn't. It is totally open-ended. If you answer a phone call and it says, on your whatever that thing's called, tells you who's calling, and it says something about Polster, you know you're going to get polling questions, right? Or if it says RNC or DNC or something like that, I don't answer any of them, by the way. I hate phones. I don't answer them at all, period. What do you know is going to happen? Do you support, will you, blah, 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 blah. Those are all leading questions. He doesn't ask that. Anything you want to tell me. Now that could mean what? My food's been burned, the clothes haven't been washed properly, the bed's not been made. I mean, he could just start off on a list of complaints. He says nothing. No, isn't anything, Professor. For those of you who've read any of the other books, and you don't have to say any specific word, in fact, don't say the specific word, what do we find out later about Dumbledore? It's kind of already been implied in the first book. He knows what people are thinking. In fact, I'm just going to leave it there. He knows what people are thinking. Is Harry thinking anything right here? Harry didn't know what to say. He thought of Malfoy shouting, "You'll be next, Mudbloods." He thought of the Polyjuice potion. He thought of the disembodied voice he'd been hearing. He thought of Ron saying, hearing voices, even in the wizarding world, isn't good. He thought about what everyone was saying about him. In other words, he's got a lot on his mind. And what does he not do? He doesn't let it out. Okay? He doesn't reveal any of that. Nope, nothing. So they make the Polyjuice potion. Harry and Ron turn into,
Crab and Goyle?
or Goyle and Crab, it doesn't matter. They're both the same. Okay? Hermione, what / who does Hermione turn into?
Millicent's cat?
Yeah. Kind of Millicent Bulstrode / her cat. Okay? Because she does get part of Millicent's hair, if I remember correctly, but also the cat fur. So she's all covered in fur. So, do they find out that Malfoy is the heir of Slytherin?
Nope.
No, he's not. What do they find out? They do find out that Malfoy is making fun of Arnold Weasley as the as he's called, okay? Next chapter, a very secret diary. We're gonna skip a bunch. Hermione is de-whiskered, tailless, etc. Page 232. They tell her about T.M. Riddle's diary, the story of how they had found it in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom and such. And Ron mentions, talks about the awards Tom Riddle got 50 years ago. And Harry and Ron kind of put two and two together and say, what if the award he got was for finding out who opened the Chamber of Secrets? 233. She's saying, well, kind of hard to prove. The diary, after all, says what? You find someone's diary, what's written in a diary? Name, probably a bunch of names. What else? Dear diary, today I did. Today I had this fight. Today I thought about whatever, if one journals, okay? This diary has what? Nothing. It's a blank book. Okay? So they're trying to figure out what Tom Riddle earned his awards for, okay? Page 240. Harry goes up to bed before everybody else. Ginny kind of had embarrassed him with the stupid singing Valentine Graham kind of a thing. And he's sitting in bed. He's got the curtains pulled around in his four-poster. He's got the diary. Pulls out a bottle of ink, dips his quill, drops a blot onto the first page of the diary. The ink gets really bright and then disappears. And Harry's like, well, that's weird. So he gets more ink and he writes, my name is Harry Potter. The words shine and then they disappear. And new words come up out of the book. Page 240. Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How'd you come by my diary? And then those words fade away. Harry writes down, someone tried to flesh it out for what? Lucky I recorded my memories. Because I knew someone would want to read my diary. And he talks about what the diary records. Harry, I'm at Hogwarts now. Horrible stuff's happening. You know anything about the Chamber of Secrets? Words come out. Harry reads them. Harry says, that's happening again now. Page 241 at the very bottom. Harry asks, who was it? I can show you if you like. You don't have to take my word for it. True or false? What does that mean? You don't have to take my word for it.
You don't have to believe what I'm saying.
You don't have to believe me. Why not? Because he says, I can show you. How? Get a little closer, get a little closer. And Harry gets sucked into the book. Okay? Remember when Harry's looking in the mirror of Erised? He puts his hands on it. He gets his face almost close enough to touch it. Why? Because we're told it's as if he wants to go into it. Well, here, to use a phrase that's used all the time today, he gets into the book. I mean, he's really into it. All right? And he sees things. What does he see? 13-year-old Hagrid. Something burst out of the cupboard. Not quite sure what. Something with a lot of legs. And what else? Hagrid get nailed as the person who opened the Chamber of Secrets. Question. What did the diary say it records?
Memories?
Whose?
Tom Riddle.
Tom Riddle's memories. Are your memories photographic or videographic records of what you see? No, they're not. How does, from what we know, from what cognitive neurologists and scientists tell us, how do you store memories? How does your brain store memories? Is there one portion where everything just gets all crammed in? No, I mean, they're now telling us that, our neurons are almost acting like sectors on a hard drive, so that everything isn't sequentially ordered. So that if I wanted to remember something from when I was 3 years old, I just sit there and go, and back up. Nope. How are memories stored? Associatively. That's why some of you might hear something, smell something, and what does it do? It brings up a memory of something that you've associated with that smell, or that song, or that voice, or another experience, okay? My question is, Tom Riddle says you don't have to take my word for it, I can show you. But what is he showing Harry?
What he wants to show him.
Kind of like the Palantir, right? The Palantir only shows you what the person with the strongest will using the Palantir can see, okay? So he shows Harry what he wants Harry to see. Remember in the Gilderoy Lockhart chapter? They have their first defense against the dark arts class. What Harry and Ron both say to Hermione at the end of the chapter? Hermione says, look at everything he's done. And I think it's Ron says, or maybe it's Harry says, he says he's done. Where did he say he's done all these things? In his books. Okay? That's going to come up in just a few moments, I think. So, Harry sees all this stuff. He sees Armando Dippet, the previous headmaster. He sees a younger Albus Dumbledore. Okay? He sees Tom Riddle speaking with Hagrid. Page 248. Ron comes in, because Harry's gone up to bed early. Ron comes in, and Harry tells Ron it was Hagrid. It was Hagrid who opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. So, next chapter, 14. Harry and Ron on page, the diary goes missing, and on 254, Harry hears the voice again. They're leaving breakfast after the Great Hall, in the Great Hall. He's getting ready, Harry's getting ready for a Quidditch match. He hears the voice again. And Harry says, the voice, I just heard it again, didn't you? And suddenly, Hermione's eyes get really wide. She claps a hand to her forehead, and she says, I've just understood something. I've got to go to the library, which is what she does when she understands something, okay? Quidditch match gets called off. McGonagall takes Harry and Ron to the infirmary. And there they see Hermione, frozen stiff. Okay? She takes them back to Gryffindor Tower. That evening, 2:59, I think it's that same evening, yep. Because Hermione's been petrified, and who else? So we have Mrs. Norris is the first one to be petrified. Then Justin and Nearly Headless Nick. Colin Creevy, Justin Nearly Headless Nick, Hermione, Penelope Clearwater, Percy's girlfriend, and I've got Ginny kind of in brackets. She's not literally petrified, but we're going to get to what happens to Ginny very soon. So now Hermione's been petrified, okay? What does Harry think? We gotta talk to Hagrid. Hagrid opened it last time. Hagrid should know who can open it now, or why does he really want to talk to Hagrid? Has Hagrid opened it again? So they get down there. What's Hagrid doing when he opens the door? What's he holding when he opens the door? 260? Crossbow. He's not holding the crossbow down at his side. He opens the door and points it at the door so that whoever is there, they know he's ready to shoot. They start to talk. There's a knock on the door. Harry and Ron throw the invisibility cloak over themselves. They're standing in the corner now. In comes Dumbledore, and in comes Cornelius Fudge, the Minister for Magic. 261. Hagrid's like, what are you doing here? Bad business, Hagrid, says Fudge. Bad business had to come. 4 attacks. Ministry's got to act. Hagrid, I never. Dumbledore knows. Dumbledore says, Hagrid has my complete trust. Hagrid's record's against him. Got to do something. What does Fudge mean? Got to act. Ministry's got to do something. I've got to do something. What's he mean by do something?
Get rid of Hagrid.
That's one thing. Do something means I've got to do anything. It has to appear, in other words, that the ministry is acting. You guys wouldn't remember this. After 9/11, and I want to say before the anthrax attacks, but it might have been after the anthrax attacks, the U.S. was scared that whoever did 9/11 was going to try to pull off some kind of biological or chemical or nuclear attack. Not nuclear like explode a nuclear weapon, but like a dirty bomb attack. Get a bunch of nuclear waste, put a bomb inside it, blow it up, and spread that nuclear waste all over. So the government came out with a pamphlet that told us what to do in case there was some kind of explosion. And it included, getting clear plastic and taping it around your windows in case there was a nuclear explosion. Better thing to do, put your head between your knees and kiss your you-know-what goodbye, because that's not going to do any good. It was like, when I grew up as a kid, getting under the desk, not a whole lot sturdier than these, a little bit, and doing the duck and cover, because that's going to protect you from, the big nuke kind of a thing. We've got to do something. We have to look like we're doing something, okay? If it turns out it wasn't Hagrid, he'll be back and no more said. But I've got to take him. Hagrid, take me. Take me where? Do we know where? At this point, no, we don't. Do we know what the where is? No, we don't. Prisoner of Azkaban. So, Hagrid gets taken to Azkaban, all right, on the basis of what? Something that was unproven that supposedly happened 50 years previously. He got taken there 50 years previously on the basis of what? A student's word. A student who was 2 years older. Okay? By the way, that's when Hagrid was expelled. 50 years ago. When he was a third year. All right? Trial? Hearing? Even an arraignment? Nope. None of that. That's why I raised the question when Dumbledore said, innocent until proven guilty. Not here. Not here. Okay, Sirius Black. So, there's another knock on the door. Lucius Malfoy slips in. I say slip because he's slippery. Who else is being taken away? Not to Azkaban. They try that in book 5. Does not go over very well. Dumbledore being removed from his position. There's Lucius Malfoy. He has a document, 12 signatures, 12 governors of the school. He says, we've got to act, etc. So Dumbledore, before he leaves, says, bottom of 263, and he says this very clearly so everyone can understand. You will find that I will only truly have left the school when none here are loyal to me. You will also find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. And Malfoy's like, okay, why are you telling me that? And then Dumbledore does what?
Looks towards Harry and Ron.
For a second, Harry was almost sure Dumbledore's eyes flickered toward the corner where he and Ron stood hidden. Hidden under what?
The invisible cloak.
An invisibility cloak, which is supposed to make you
Invisible.
so that no one can see you. And yet apparently Dumbledore can. Problem? Should be a huge problem. Because we get told much later in the series, I'm trying to think how to put this. This invisibility cloak is one that conceals you, and there's no spells, nothing that can unconceal you. Okay? And yet we also saw in book 1, Harry's wearing the cloak in one scene, and Dumbledore says, "So, back again, Harry?" When Harry's looking at the Mirror of Erised on the 3rd night. I didn't know you were there. He says, it's amazing how nearsighted you get being invisible. I don't need an invisibility cloak to make myself invisible. All right? So then Hagrid offers some words of advice. If anyone wanted to find out some stuff, all they'd have to do would be to follow the spiders. That's all I'm saying. Follow the spiders. Problem with that, of course, is what?
Ron does not like spiders.
Ron is scared to death of spiders. So, they go up, they see spiders at the 3rd floor. They saw spiders earlier, the 3rd floor bathroom. So they go off into the Forbidden Forest, and they follow a trail of spiders. They see spiders going, and they follow them. It leads them to Aragog. What do they discover from Aragog? Who is Aragog? He's like the granddaddy of all the spiders at Hogwarts. Aragog tells them what happened essentially 50 years ago. Hagrid was blamed for the opening of the Chamber of Secrets. Hagrid had nothing to do with it. And Aragog says, it was thought I was what was in there. He says, but the thing that's in there is our greatest foe. So what should Harry and Ron do at that point?
Be very afraid.
Be very afraid. What else? Get on their Hogwarts internet, which they don't have, by the way. Get on their Hogwarts internet and say, type in, what are the spiders' greatest enemy? Go to the library, which somebody has already done. Okay? The flying Ford Anglia rescues them. 281. Harry realizes Hagrid never opened the Chamber of Secrets. He was innocent. Meaning what?
He was framed.
Okay, what else?
There's something else that opened the chamber.
Okay, why did Harry think Hagrid was the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets?
Because of what Tom Riddle showed him.
In other words, what might books do? They might lie. Or the authors behind them might lie. Okay? They put 2 and 2 together. The girl who died 50 years ago, Moaning Myrtle, 3rd floor bathroom, etc. They talked to Myrtle. They go up to the infirmary. They find the piece of paper in Hermione's hand. They hear everybody's confined to their dormitories, and they go and they overhear, eavesdrop on the professors. Page 293. And McGonagall says, there's another message. Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Flitwick. Madam Hooch. Who? Ginny Weasley. Ron falls down, slides down on the inside of the wardrobe. We'll have to send the students home tomorrow. And at that point, Lockhart barges in, says, I fell asleep. Why do the professors tell him what they do? Just the man for the job? I recall you saying XYZ. What's their point?
You're this defense against the dark arts, you're this great wizard, you go save her.
Yeah, but what's really their point?
You're a fraud.
Get the hell out of here. They want him out of their hair. Okay? Do Harry and Ron see that? No, they don't. They don't understand that. They know he's a fraud, kind of. All right? So they follow, after the other teachers leave, they follow Lockhart off to his office. He explains he's leaving. Harry, 297, you mean you're running away? After that stuff, all that stuff you did in your books? Books can be misleading. You wrote them. Notice, books can be misleading. Very passive voice. What does Harry do? Harry brings the active voice back in. You wrote the books. It's not the books that were misleading. It was Lockhart who was misleading. And so Lockhart explained how he came about to write the books. He stole the memories from the people who actually did all these things and then took the credit himself. Talk about plagiarism. Ooh, talk about, you're stealing somebody else's real work, okay? They get down into the chamber. Lockhart tries to use the memory charm on them, the Obliviate, makes them oblivious, But he uses Ron's wand instead of his own. Backfires on him, so, he's a blank slate. Here he goes into the chamber, 306, 307. He sees Ginny. Tries to wake her up, she won't. Harry sees Tom. Tom Riddle. Kind of blurry, not like he's not really there. What do you mean she won't wake? She's not, no, she's alive, just barely. Are you a ghost? A memory. Now, should Harry be able to recognize a ghost?
No.
Yes, he should. His first meal. Who sits near him? Or kind of hovers over him? Nearly Endless Nick. And he's there every meal. Okay? And there are other ghosts at Hogwarts. Right? Bloody Baron, we see. Does Tom Riddle look like one of the ghosts? No, he doesn't. So they keep talking, and Harry reaches for his wand, which was on the ground, and it's not there, and there's Tom Riddle doing this with it. He reaches out, and Tom Riddle doesn't give it. So, they talk about the diary. Tom Riddle talks about things that have happened. Page 310. Talks about being able to charm people. And he says, Ginny poured out her soul to me. I grew powerful, far more powerful than little Miss Weasley, powerful enough to start feeding Miss Weasley a few of my secrets, to start pouring a little of my soul back into her, which is going to be kind of interesting when you think about it, because of what Harry and Dumbledore are going to talk about in Harry's debriefing at the end of the novel. Okay? Harry, what do you mean? In other words, clarify. You poured some of your soul into Ginny. How? You haven't guessed yet? Ginny opened the Chamber of Secrets. Ginny killed the roosters. Ginny did the writing with the blood. No, yes. They go back and forth. He mentions Hagrid. Harry says, Hagrid's my friend. He mentions Dumbledore. Harry says, I bet Dumbledore saw right through you. Okay? 3:13. Tom Riddle says, bottom of the page, how is it that you, a skinny boy with no extraordinary magical talent, managed to defeat the greatest wizard of all time? Notice, not the greatest dark wizard, the greatest wizard. How did you escape with nothing but a scar while Lord Voldemort's powers were destroyed? What did he just say? Lord Voldemort. Who usually uses the name in the book so far? Dumbledore and Harry. Why? Because Harry doesn't even think about it. He doesn't remember, ooh, I should be afraid to use the name. Okay? And he doesn't catch it either. Why do you care how I escaped? Voldemort was after your time. And that's when he writes, Tom Marvolo Riddle, I am Lord Voldemort. And he goes on to talk about using the name. And he says, you know, when I had become the greatest sorcerer in the world, page 314. Harry, you're not. Not what? Not the greatest sorcerer in the world. Sorry to disappoint you and all that, but the greatest wizard is Albus Dumbledore. Everyone says so. Even when you were at your height, Dumbledore scared you. Okay? Notice this angers the memory of Tom Riddle. Dumbledore's been driven out of this castle by the mere memory of me. Harry, he's not as gone as you might think. He just, spur of the moment, says that. Doesn't even think about it. Why? Does he remember Dumbledore said, I will only truly have left when none here are loyal to me? And he thinks, ooh, I need to be loyal. Therefore, nope. There's not time for that process. Because as soon as Harry says that, notice, wishing rather than believing it to be true, dash, the dash indicates something happens right then. That's when they start hearing Phoenix song. Even before Riddle opened his mouth but froze. He opens his mouth to speak and he hears that song. And there's Fawkes. Second later, Fawkes is flying at Harry. And it drops something. The school sorting hat. And he's like, Harry, do you feel brave? Dumbledore sent a phoenix and a hat. Does that, increase your courage? Are you going to be able to defeat me with those things? Do you feel safe now? So he says, to business, Harry. Twice in your past and my future we've met. Twice I failed to kill you. Or, to put that another way, twice you defeated me. Can't say that. Twice I failed to kill you. How did you survive? Tell me everything, because you'll live longer. He monologues. Like, the bad guy in the Incredibles, every evil villain, every movie, monologues. It's a trope. I have no idea why, but it's true. They always do. So Harry says, no one knows why you lost your powers when you attacked me. I don't know myself, but I know why you couldn't kill me. My mother died to save me, my common muggle-born mother. She stopped you killing me, and I've seen the real you. I saw you last year. You're a wreck. You're barely alive. Which, by the way, he says almost that exact same thing at the end of book 7. Harry does. To Lord Voldemort. Okay? So, notice what the 16-year-old Tom Riddle realizes that the, I had it written down, 54-year-old Tom Riddle didn't understand. The The 16-year-old Tom Riddle goes, she tried to save you. Oh, that's a powerful counter charm. Should have thought of that. 54 years old, that's how old Lord Voldemort was when he originally cursed Harry. Okay? See, we get the the death day party, celebrating nearly Nick's 500th death day. He died in 1492, so that was 1992. This is in Harry's second year. So in Harry's first year, it was 1991. That's when he turned 11. So Harry was born in 1980. So go from 42, when Tom Riddle was 15, to 1980, makes him 54 years old. Okay? My point of all that is, why didn't Lord Voldemort, when he saw Harry's mother stretching her arms out, getting in front of Harry's body, saying, no, kill me, take me instead. Greater love hath no man than is willing to lay down his life for another, kind of a thing. Why didn't he realize, ooh, if I kill her now, there will be a charm that she'll put on him, therefore he doesn't even think about it. One of my students, my first class, suggested it's because of what we're told, that Tom Riddle has no understanding of love. Because Harry said, it was my mother's love for me. So he says, there is nothing special about you. I get it now. You see, I thought maybe there was. Why? Because we're similar, man. Strange likenesses. I mean, even you must have noticed. What's the even you mean?
I'm sorry.
Even someone as dumb as you couldn't fail to see this. Half-bloods? There's that question I brought up from the beginning. Is Harry a half-blood?
Yes, kind of.
What is Harry's mother?
Muggle.
She's a witch. What is Harry's father? He's a wizard. So how do you determine what's half-blood? Okay, his mother's parents were Muggle. So, as one of my students said earlier, and I've had other students say, so wouldn't he really be 3/4 blood? I mean, if we're going to get nitpicky, what you got to do, this is where that whole issue of race and genealogy and heredity, all that stuff just gets blown up. Okay? What is Voldemort?
Half-blood.
His father was what?
A muggle.
A Muggle. His mother was a witch. Her family goes all the way back to Slytherins. So, half. Harry, full, his mother's full witch. Okay? She's not mostly witch. She's not 66%. She's not 50%. Rowling, I really think, wants us to say, can we just stop with these stupid notions? So, goes on. Half-bloods, orphans, raised by Muggles. Latter two things are both true, okay? Probably the only two parcel mouths. Notice he doesn't understand why. 16-year-old Tom doesn't. We even look a little bit alike. Okay? So, they attack. And what does Fox do? Blinds the basilisk, brings the hat back to Harry, sweeps it on his head. Harry grabs it, puts it on his head, and thinks, help me, help me, help me. Like, help me, universe. Help me, Hogwarts. Help me, Dumbledore. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, if anything's, out there. Who's he asking help for? Anybody. And what did Dumbledore say before he left? Help will always come to those who ask. Okay? So how does the sorting hat bring help? It squeezes a sword, and it's really a disgusting image when you think about it. A sword out. Harry kills the basilisk, gets bit in the arm, Okay? And Tom Riddle says, I'm just going to sit here and watch you die. This will be fun. You got a 12 extra years because your mother died to save you. And Harry thinks, 321, if this is dying, it's not so bad. Even the pain was leaving him. Big question. Is he dying at that point? Now, Fox has already put his head on Harry, and he's got tears. Okay? But notice, if this is dying, thought Harry, it's not so bad. Why? Is it because Fox's tears are making Harry undying? Maybe. What's it telling us about Harry? What was he willing to do for Ginny? In other words, go back to the end of the first book. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. Is Harry's mind well organized? Yes, it is. In fact, I'm going to suggest, you don't have to buy it or not, the entire 7-book series is about this theme. Harry Potter and the Art of Dying Well. It's a book I've written up here. Too lazy to put it down here. Somebody else will get around to it sooner or later, because they always do with my good ideas. It's what it's all about. Everything's pointing in this direction. We're going to see bad deaths. We're going to see good deaths. Okay? So, he tries to scare off Fox, and what does Harry do? Well, Fox drops the diary in Harry's lap. He pulls the fang, stabs the diary, and kills Tom Riddle. Jump forward. Harry gets them all upstairs. They get up to McGonagall's room. There's McGonagall, the Weasleys, Dumbledore, etc. Harry kind of gives sign language to Dumbledore. We need to talk. Need to get Ginny off, out of here free. Dumbledore kind of explains. 329. Dumbledore talks about the diary, Ginny being enchanted, and then he gets everybody else out of the room. Pages 332 and 333 with 4 minutes to go. Dumbledore tells Harry, sit down. Now, I just said that kind of harshly. Sit down, he says. And Harry does. I need to thank you. Why? Because you showed loyalty to me. Only that would have brought Fox, okay? What else? You met Tom Riddle. He was interested, I bet, in meeting you. Harry, Riddle said I'm like him, strange likenesses. Did he now? And how does that make you feel, Harry? He puts on his counselor hat. Harry, I don't think I'm like him. I'm a Gryffindor. And then he thinks of the stupid hat again. Everyone thought I was Slytherin's heir because I can speak Parseltongue. Big, major, short paragraph. You can speak Parseltongue, Harry, because Lord Voldemort, who is the last remaining ancestor of Salazar Slytherin, can speak Parseltongue. What's the wrong word in that sentence? It's not a misused word. It is totally wrong in the context. The word is ancestor. The ancestor is the one who comes before. The descendant is the one who comes after. Lord Voldemort is the last remaining descendant of Salazar Slytherin. Salazar Slytherin is the ancestor of Lord Voldemort. Okay? Here's the big money quote. Or the big line. Unless I'm much mistaken, he transferred some of his own powers to you the night he gave you that scar. Okay? So Dumbledore says, when Voldemort gave you that scar, he transferred some of his powers to you. Harry hears that, processes it internally, and then restates it in a way he understands it. All right? This is the first time Harry does this. He's going to do it in all the remaining books. And it's very important. Voldemort put a bit of himself into me, or in me. Notice the difference. One, he transferred some powers. The other, he put a piece of himself in me. Seems so. So Harry then immediately concludes, oh, then I should be in Slytherin. Because I've got part of a Slytherin in me. Dumbledore says, nope. Why aren't you in Gryffindor? Come on, Harry, you can do this. I'm betting on you. Because I chose. Bingo. And here is the money quote. Just like, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. Here's the money quote for this book. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. Choices do what? Dumbledore is saying. They reveal the heart. They reveal what's inside. Okay? They don't determine what's inside. This is going to become really important in books 4, 5, and 6, and partially in 7. So, Dumbledore says, you need proof? Look at the sword. And what does the sword say? Godric Gryffindor. And what does Dumbledore say? Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that sword out of the hat. Who'd the hat belong to? Godric Gryffindor. What does he mean only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that sword out of the hat?
You belong in Gryffindor.
You really do belong in Gryffindor. What's another possible meaning? That's the figurative meaning. The literal meaning. Only someone who is really a Gryffindor. Blood, genealogy, ancestry could have pulled that sword. By the way, later on, book 6, Harry and Dumbledore are going to go off looking for relics of the 4 founders. We're going to be told there's only one relic of Godric Gryffindor still around.
Sword.
Wrong. You're right.
Oh, okay.
It's the sword. It's wrong. There's 2. The hat. Gryffindor literally pulled the hat off. And we're told, took some of the brains of each of the 4 founders. Not literal brains. Something that's going to come up later on. Okay? Is the means by which they do this. Okay, we will pick up with Azkaban on Tuesday. I'll put up a quiz for Chamber of Secrets. Man, my brain's fried. Probably today. That'll be due Monday or Tuesday. Have a good weekend.